at Chapter 8. And like I said, Chapter 8, it has a lot of PowerPoint. Okay? However, the majority of these PowerPoints are to go through and talk to you about these bones. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go through and read each of these slides to you, blah, blah, blah. Not doing that, okay? Because you're already studying this. You're already studying these bones to get prepared for the practical that we're going to do at the end. So there's a couple of things that I kind of want to point out for the rest of Chapter 8. Okay? So, when we begin to look at Chapter 8, we are going to say that we have the axial skeleton and the appendicular. The axis. Okay? When you hear the term axis, what do you think about? Do what? I'm missing some new terms. Okay, y'all have to keep me up to date now, okay? Because I'm old. Now, when you hear axis, okay, that's like the point that everything attaches. Okay? So we have our axial skeleton. This, okay? And then appendicular, the appendices. Okay? So this is how we refer to the skeleton. And then, of course, the skull, which is, to say the least, interesting. Alright? Because here's the thing. If you can learn these appendicular bones on one side, you can know the other side. If you learn axial, they're just kind of easy. Not a whole lot going on there. Okay? But in our skull, whew, oh man, I got quite a bit of different bones that are going to come out being associated with the skull. I got 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 22 just in the skull. But see, everything else, if you look at the axis, if you look at the upper limbs versus the lower limbs, everything's pretty much paid. Okay? Pretty much left, right. Now, this skeleton, this face, the skull, okay? The skull is a tad bit interesting. The bones that are associated with it are with the axial skeleton, the skull, the hyoid bone. Does anybody know the hyoid bone? Mm-hmm. Like right there. Yeah, looks like a little vampire teeth. Okay? Our vertebral column and the rib cage. This is our axis. These appendices. Now in the skull gets pretty interesting. When we talk about support and protection, most definitely it is protecting very precious tissue, our brains. Alright? And when we begin to look at the skull, when we were looking at the infant skull, one of the things that hadn't happened yet when an infant is born is that those bones have closed up. Alright? Because one of the things it has to allow for, it has to allow for the growth and development of that tissue, which is usually between, it's done usually by the age of 3 to 5. Once that infant skull becomes the adult skull, there's a lot of line in it. And that's because the tissues that were in between those bones that hadn't fused yet, they contain something called Vermian bone, meaning all of these little areas where the bones haven't touched, this connective tissue, these little membranous tissues that are holding it together, they actually have what seem like little rocks inside of it. And those are actually bones. They're very tiny. But as this head continues to grow and move to allow for the growth of the brain, then it begins to harden. And this helps harden those areas. So that by the time 3 to 5 years of age, the hard head. Okay? Some of us continue that throughout life. All right? So, we're going to see the growth and development. We end up getting where these bones close up between those bones, where we get the connecting of them. Not only does it have a jagged structure, which gives strength, by the way, okay? When they close up, we call them sutures, okay? This, believe it or not, is a type of joint. And I don't mean that kind, all right? I mean this kind. One that when we hear the term joint, we associate movement. Do you really think of the skull bone as moving? No. But they have a tiny, tiny bit of ability to move. We know that because we hit our heads and things that we go right all over, unless you hit it just right and hard enough. But for the most part, we can take a little hit to our head and the bones don't just go like that. All right? So the sutures are really kind of cool. So this just kind of takes you through a lot of the pictures showing the bones of the skull. These are the bones that are going to be present in the skull and the mandible. All right? What you think?
We ain't got to know all of them, right?
I know some of them.
Okay.
Let's see. Think about this. How important are these bones that are definitely flat, definitely irregular, okay, definitely short, okay? Think about this for a second, about the tissues they support. Somebody is in a bad car wreck, for example. How easy is it to put back and repair facial bones? It's not. Okay? They've come a long way in what they can do now, okay? But it's not a lot that can be done with the facial bone, okay? And when you think about areas of the face, okay, if you're hit correctly, and this bone right here, it can kill you. Why? It goes straight up into the brain. When we look at some of these bones, okay, there's one of the things that's kind of cool about this list right here. These terms that you have to study, like for that matching that I'm probably going to put together, okay, look at how many different terms are associated with these bones. I see fossa, I see condyle, I see process, I see lines, okay? These are all terms, and they're letting you know something about the structure. Now, in a skull, the skull, well, first of all, when you hear the term brain, what do you think about? Think about soft tissue?
Electrical.
Think about the neuron. The lobe. This is the part you think about. Do you ever think about that part? Which one do you think is more important? This part. And the way the skull is made, that one's not undone. It sits directly down into it. The bones, the depressions, the lines, the different features that the skull has. All this stuff that's in the base of the skull is perfect for housing my brain. Here's another organ found on the brain that sits in an area called the sella turcica at the base of the skull. It needs to be very well protected. You happen to know what that little going in, that little organ might be?
Is the pineal or something like that?
Well, pineal's going to be a little further back, okay? You had P, the pituitary. It's encased by bone. Why is your brain stem, the midbrain, the pons, the medulla, so important?
Because all the involuntary functions.
And do what also? Okay, what do we classify as involuntary? Breathing. Heart rate. Do you think of something such as it will have like a secondary effect on it, but how about something such as hunger, thirst? You would be shocked at those primitive functions, because this is a primitive area of the brain. Primitive meaning hasn't changed a lot, okay? And it is controlling body temperature. I mean, it has so many things that it controls. Every time I look at the list, I'm just like, wow, okay? And I don't know how long I've been in this field now. I don't even try to sit back and think about that. So, I still get amazed at it. So the skull is probably going to be the most difficult to study. Now, when you look at the slides that I've given you, I'm giving you probably every feature that they're going to have. But you don't need to know that, okay? You've got a list of what I want you to know. But I'm letting you know all of the features, structures, processes, lines, canals, sinuses. I'm telling you everything about the skull. Mainly because of all the precious tissue that it protects. Think about this too. It protects, when you hear senses, PVC